everybody. My name is Yinka. I'm 25 and I'm from East London.
Fantastic. And do you know Jesus?
I do. I do. My earliest memory of church, from childhood, really. I grew up in a Catholic church, and so we did all the sacraments, Holy Communion, confirmation. I was also an altar server for a very long time, maybe about 7, 8 years or so. And so, yeah, church was something that was always integral to my week, my life as a child. And yeah, I think growing up, it was more of a kind of routine. You just kind of go and do the things, you need to do. Mum takes you this Sunday event, But yeah, I think that was more so what church meant to me growing up. It was more so it was a learned behaviour as such, as opposed to kind of like a personal quest. The first time I heard from the Lord, I'll probably say more so in my late teens, when I kind of made the decision to kind of pursue a relationship with Christ for myself. I couldn't say I can pinpoint when I first heard from the Lord, but I do remember it becoming more of like a something that happened more kind of as I've gotten older, and it just being like a strong feeling or strong idea about something, even if that something is not something I'd want to do. And I think that often is how I can differentiate, because I'm able to kind of know what I want to do and then what I'm having a desire or like a push to do, if that kind of makes sense. And so, yeah, I think there's been circumstances that's happened, my kind of going to university, life choices in terms of kind of career paths and things to do that I know or God kind of telling me to not do something anymore or stop a particular thing. And so, yeah, I'd definitely say it's been more prevalent like as I've been older.
And what makes you believe that God is real?
Everything. Like the creation. Creation is so intentional or deliberate, the way things have been, like nature, human beings. Like you look outside your window and you can see that God has created these things. And so that's one way. But then also just situations in my life where kind of I've gone through, or my family have seen victory in certain situations that probably we wouldn't have like otherwise. And so, yeah, I know God is real. I know he's looking out for his children. I know he has a plan to save those that love him and care about him. And it's something I'm reminded of every single day. So, yeah, that's how I know God is real. For me, evangelism is about sharing the good news. It's about sharing your testimony. It's interesting because in the last few years, it's a situation I've found myself in a lot, where I'm often having conversations with people or non-believers, or even believers really, who may have just kind of fallen off a little bit. But yeah, just having conversations with these people, sharing my testimony, sharing, the good news, the gospel, the goodness of Christ. And I think evangelism, that sharing of, the sharing doesn't always look the same. And for different people, that can mean different things. That can mean conversations. That can mean, if you have like a social media presence, posting on social media. That could mean being on the street, on the mics, with the speakers, And so it can look different for different people, but it's an intentional sharing of Christ. What you say, but also what you do and how you act. But yeah, I think it's intentional. I evangelize a few different ways. Like I mentioned, sharing my testimony a lot with people, especially people who I see are in kind of similar situations as me. I'm a DJ, and so I often find ways to incorporate the message in a particular way in like my sets or in like my mixes. And so that's one way for me. I'm someone I post on my Instagram story quite a lot. And oftentimes when I come across something that I think, is important to share, I will share it. I do my best to treat people well, with love and respect, especially people who may not be of faith, as a way to kind of demonstrate Christ's love for other people. And whilst it's not always easy, I do my best. So yeah, I think for me, evangelism shows up in loads of different ways. And I do my best to be intentional about it as well. I think it's always been, and I think will always be, difficult to share the good news with a world that doesn't want the good news. And I think scriptures talks about that. And so I think there will always be challenges. I think there were challenges then, and I think those challenges persist. Hardened hearts, etc., etc. I do think now there are systems in place that allow us to speak freely, and that allow us to do that in a way that kind of keeps us from being harmed. Like, we're able to kind of use different mediums, social media, be on the street and do those things without having getting in trouble for it. I do think now the world is so wicked, even wickeder, perhaps even as wicked, but maybe even wickeder. And so I do think there are still loads of, I think it is still really difficult to evangelize, even with the social medias, even with the, all these different forums or different methods or things we can use. And so I don't know if I could say that it was harder to which is harder then or now, but I do think it's always been hard. It will always be hard. And I think where we have more to kind of manage now, it also makes it hard, if that kind of makes sense. They may not have had Instagram back then, but we have Instagram now and the challenges that come with Instagram, if that kind of makes sense. So it's a catch-22.
What advice would you give somebody who is trying to draw closer to God?
Why? I think that's the first thing. I think understanding your why, of why you want to draw closer to God, is important, because that's your anchor, it's your reason. And I think sometimes people draw closer to God because either they've been fear-mongered into doing it or because they see other people doing it. And I think those people are easily kind of swayed when they don't have a solid why. So the first thing I'd encourage is for you to examine your why. Why do I want to get closer to God? And then I would also encourage people to get to know God. And I think by that I mean kind of prioritizing learning about who God is, who God has been, who God articulates himself to be going forward. I think it's hard to draw near to someone that you don't know, or you only have an idea of because of experiences that you've told, or you've experienced God vicariously through other people, like your family. So yeah, examining your why, learning about God, and I guess the best way to do that is studying scripture, prioritizing Bible study. Very, very important. As you learn about God, you then also do your best to move with him and obey him, and be open-minded to the fact that he will likely, how can I say, challenge you on some things in your life. In that kind of process of consecration, he will take some things, add some things, and just being open-minded to that. Yeah, examining your why, learning about him, prioritizing learning about him through scriptures, through fellowship, and then being open to moving with his leading. There have been many times that I've just kind of thought, take me off, cut the show. Literally, there have been many times where I've kind of struggled, going through seasons where you realize that you are not in as much control as you think you are. And I think it was just that. I think, especially as a young person, the world is your oyster. You have this idea that the world is your oyster. You kind of move freely. You're learning about yourself. You're learning about the world. You're learning about kind of where to put boundaries and parameters. And I think I there was times where I struggled when I realized that I'm perhaps not as free as the world paints out that I should be at this time. And also times where, there's been lots of illnesses and losses and things that have happened within my life and my family, where you just question hello? All these good things that are promised to us throughout scripture, I'm not, where is he? You know, so I think in those seasons I really struggled with my faith because I just felt kind of like God had set me up and then left. But then I think coming back was realizing that, how can I say? Coming back was realizing that God never actually left. And I think I realized that He is the only constant. And, you know, you can go up, go down, go left, go right. All of those things mean nothing, essentially. Kind of like the book of Ecclesiastes, you know, you read about how like meaningless a lot of these things are. And so it helped me kind of detach a lot of the value that I place on things other than Christ. And I think that really helped centered me because I think as a child, you're kind of reared to place a lot of value on kind of your profession, your relationships, your friendships, and all these things. And then when these things are challenged or pushed around or shaken, you kind of lose yourself. It feels like they've just pulled the rug under your feet when perhaps family members aren't there anymore, or you don't have a particular career that you worked so hard for. And so I think I just realized really early on that God is the only constant, and He's the only part of my life that, you know, He means the most. And as such, I should prioritize my relationship with Him, serving Him, honoring Him, and loving others as He's instructed me to. So yeah, very, very long-winded answer, but I try my best.
How would you describe God's love?
Whew. How would I describe God's love? Very cliche, but like, you know, when you're really thirsty, like you've gone for a run or you're really like in somewhere like really hot, and then you have a cold, chilled glass of water. That's it. It's literally the meeting of your needs. It's the his love is, it fills you, it satiates you. It's sacrificial. You know, we learned that God gave His only Son for us, and so I find perhaps the best way to describe God's love is that, yeah, like it meets your needs that you perhaps didn't even realize that you had. And I think sometimes people think God's love should meet our wants as opposed to our needs. And I think it's important that we differentiate the two. God is everything to us. He keeps us, He guides us. Yeah, it's indescribable, the love of God. I'm blessed and privileged that I get to experience God's love, and His love is for everyone that will accept Him, will receive it in this time. And so it's something that I believe everyone should do their best to get in touch with at some point in their lives. My favorite way to worship God is, yeah, with music. I guess very typical given that I'm a DJ, but yeah, I'm not saying I'm the greatest vocalist, but I love worshiping God. Yeah, singing songs, putting playlists together, making the room and the time and the space to invite Him in and spend time with Him. So through music. But then also I believe worship is also about how you live your life. And so being intentional about the way I live and the way I interact with others and the way I work, the way I fellowship, the way I do friendship. And so worship through music, but then also worship through how I live my life.
So as we wrap up, where can the people find you, socials, anything you want to share with us?
A lot of my socials are consumed with like my DJing, and so if you do want to follow my DJing page, it's DJY, so that's DWJAY_WHY. And so a lot of my projects and the things I do are on there. And so yeah, if you want to follow me, check me out.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.